of its moment-to-moment existence. But how to get it? How to get it? I didn't have the resources to reproduce the electrical potential of that heartbeat on an oscilloscope. The vernacular, as it very often does, came to my rescue. On my perambulations around the city, I noticed a bounding dot in a window, rotating in a pub, in a saloon or pub or bar, advertising beers. And there was this sort of surface, illuminated surface, and the bounding dot was produced by rotating a cylindrical sleeve with a vertical slit behind an opaque outer cylinder inscribed with a narrow, transparent wave. This allowed the light from a central bulb to be seen as a dot of light traveling in a lazy arc. I had it, I had it. I wanted to animate the first three leads, as I say. I isolated them into three windows. I needed, as I pointed out, the horizontal structure with the three windows. And in those days, the 60s, Canal Street in Lower Manhattan was Aladdin's cave for discarded hardware. So I found, as I say, a beautiful spirit level with three windows. I etched leads 1 and 2. These are from various exhibitions. I etched leads 1, 2, and 3 into the three circular windows in proper sequence, linked by a calm horizontal line. I inserted it into a rectangular box with a neon bar behind. I made a band with vertical slits, which rotated with a motor, and I will not forget my excitement when the heart began to beat, inscribing perfectly the course traced on the electrocardiogram by Duchamp's heart. I had him alive and in my hand. I mounted it on the wall at home, and there it was, beating away when people came around. Morton Feldman, my friend Morty, came around and watched it through his thick lenses, and then he closed his eyes and listened to its various squeaks, and as the motor rotated, and said, it's like Chinese opera. And he offered, in his brilliant way, Morty did, 3 or 4 hypotheses on the sound. Then Bob Smithson, who I learned was more interested in Duchamp than he ever let on to me, because he was hard on the Dada people, he came and gave it his basilisk stare. I think it annoyed him. I showed the portrait of Marcel Duchamp at the Byron Gallery in my exhibition in 1966 with the drawings and cardiogram, and I was in the gallery when Duchamp came. He looked at this record of his own heart beating for some time, and watching Duchamp, watching his heart beat, was somewhat eerie. He said nothing, and neither did I. What was he thinking? We never discussed his portrait. But when Barbara Novak met him in the street, he would inquire quite anxiously, "Is it still beating?" Now, Duchamp was brilliant, of course, like Joyce was brilliant. There's another superb brain. And I believe that as a young man, before he became a benign and very happy old man, he was quite demonic in the way he assimilated and influenced people. I said that to John Cage once, and John didn't want to hear that. He couldn't, thought his own kindness was shared by everybody. But when I looked at him, looking at his work, did he realize that its true existence would begin when he had departed? Implicit in the work was this necessary cruelty. For the young man I was then, that was a work of presumption, perhaps of considerable presumption. But I had enough sense to know that if you're going to run with a big dog, you better win, you better play for keeps. I had turned Duchamp's ongoing heartbeat into an artwork to be hung on the wall of the gallery and museum. If he insisted on his notion that any artwork on the institutional wall decayed into an antique for the future, that idea ran full tilt into his own heartbeat. With each of the oscilloscope's little tizzy, would his theory suffer a little death? I felt a reasonable answer was yes. Artworks exist in the present, which relays them from moment to moment through the vicissitudes of history. I felt I had created a work that literalized that idea as moment to moment was paralleled heartbeat by heartbeat. But there were complications. Who owned the heartbeat? I had recorded it, yes, but only he could produce it. Was it a ready-made, made by Duchamp, made by his heart, an involuntary ready-made? I had denoted an artwork, just as he had named secular, casual objects from the quotidian world artworks. Now, as I thought about it, I was on a street where there was a heavy traffic in ironies. I had appropriated his heartbeat. Had I stolen it? On some primitive level, had I eaten his heart? He had used me to make him, rather his vital faculty, immortal. How much of his identity resided in this electronic record, and how much of mine? Was my method too clever? Was it his work of art, or was it mine? Could I refute my refutation? Could he refute my refutation? I had to go further. I had to go further. The following year, I made 2 other oscilloscopes, showing only lead 1. And counting his heartbeat on the cardiogram, I got his resting heart rate. So one oscilloscope showed his resting heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom. I think it was about 70. I don't remember exactly. That was simple enough. The other oscilloscope on the right was more dangerous. I found a slow motor on Canal Street that retarded his heartbeat to about 7 beats a minute. The blue whale's heart beats 6 beats a minute. So I was taking Marcel Duchamp's heartbeat, the blue whale's heartbeat, and I could make him live when he died indefinitely. So when he died, I counted up the number of heartbeats, the quota of heartbeats, his allotted quota of heartbeats in his lifetime. I slowed them to 7 beats a minute, thereby making him, when you divided that into the number of heartbeats that he had in his lifetime, made him live 210 years, I think it was. So that slow heartbeat will go for about 210 years. So I had finished my job. With his death, the work began its proper life, a cruel business. So there is a darkness at the heart of the humor. There is humor at the heart of the darkness. Stuart Davis said something to me once that I never forgot. He said, what is an artist without his secret? And I felt I had Duchamp's secret. And in a curious way, I felt that he had provoked me to reveal much of my own. One last word. I have been harassed and bothered and annoyed by the lack of insight by critics who insist on connecting me as influenced by Duchamp. I obviously had a great interest in chess from my childhood. I was very interested in multiple identities. And there is a woman here who's very kindly, a scholar, Brenda McCann, who was flown over from Dublin and who has written a book, the first book, as I understand it, in which she deals with that canard and attaches influences to a wonderful comic novelist in the various identities that I've assumed, to a great comic novelist called Flann O'Brien, who had 3 personas. I'm also happy to hear Christine Kennedy, who originated the retrospective that was seen at the Grey Gallery, I think it's 2 years ago now, certainly more than a year. And also want to welcome Whitney Rugg, who gave up 2 theater tickets to come down here from New York. But I, in the 60s, watching my wife dealing with a male art history department at Columbia University, became a vigorous feminist. These personas are obviously, we'll just finish with this. You know who he is. That is William McGinn, who was a very interesting 19th century gentleman whom I have appropriated. This is Patrick Ireland, who died last May 20th. This is a Kunsthistorisch gentleman called Sigmund Bode, who wrote one of what is some feel is an important text in that Aspen 5/6 that I think someone referred to. And that is Mary Josephs, and that is my female persona. Now, she has nothing whatever to do with Rrose Sélavy or anything that Rrose Sélavy is interested in. She was a feminist, and she was a writer. And she has given me many years of comfort and solace. So anyway, the carelessness of people who, if you're interested in somebody, as I was in Duchamp, who was a wonderful guy, and to then proceed to see all your work in that light. What's his name? Mark. Rothko and I were close friends. Nobody sees Rothko in my work, etc. So this art historical nonsense, since there's so many art historians here, I want to charge in that fashion. So there you are. That's Marcel Duchamp, eternally living upstairs.